What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Me TV Reviews. I am your host, Mo, and tonight, you guys, we are going to be discussing Emperor of Ocean Park, y'all. That's right. This is Season 1, Episode 3, titled Chapter 3. I hope y'all have had a wonderful week thus far, y'all. We have made it to Hump Day. So y'all know we got a couple more days to grind this thing out, okay? Get them coins, and then it's back to the weekend so we can relax. All right, y'all? So without further ado, let's go ahead, get into the synopsis real quick, and then we're going to get right into the episode. So the synopsis for this one is Tal's paranoia grows following his mysterious run-in with Agent McDermott, and Mariah's investigation into her father's death has her reminiscing on her career as a Pulitzer Award-winning journalist. Seems like we're going to be taking some trips back down memory lane, y'all. It was a really good episode. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So we start the episode off with Tal going to see his homie in security because y'all remember somebody put that chess piece on the podium in the last episode. So he shows him the footage of the hallway right outside of his class, right? So everything seems normal up until he spots a professor, and I believe this is that Mark guy who had made a comment about Kimmer in the previous episodes. So he ends up seeing Mark, who normally doesn't have classes on this particular day, walking into his class, which I'm like, okay, what are you doing there? So he ends up getting a copy of the footage and gets surprised when he's on his way to his car, y'all. He's walking, it's dark, it's quiet. You know, ain't nobody really walking around on campus like that. He already paranoid because he got all this stuff happening. Y'all, he ends up getting surprised by Agent McDermott, or whatever the hell his name is at this point. Because we found out in the last episode that ain't nobody with that name existing in the FBI profile, okay? And so he does admit that he also works for someone who's also looking for Lisa and really wants to get to her before Ziegler does, because he's still a heartless animal despite his elderly appearance, okay? Don't let the appearance fool you. Ziegler know people and he got a far reach, okay? Ruthless. So again, Tal has no idea what McDermott is talking about when he's referring to Lisa, and he simply tells him, hey, look, just call me when you want to talk about Lisa. And he ends up giving Tal his card, right? So in my head, I'm like, okay, you better off at this point trying to hypnotize Tal, because ain't no way that this man remembers who Lisa is. Even if you dig down in the deep recesses of his mind, this man has no idea who you are talking about. So then we go over to Mariah. Mariah is dropping one of the babies off at school. I believe this is Malcolm right now. I think he's one of the older ones, if not the oldest, okay? So Mariah is dropping Malcolm off at school, but apparently he's in the back. He's taking up some time, and so he's holding up the line. So she goes back there to see what's going on, and he's telling her that he can't find his laptop. So, like any other mama would, she's like, okay, well, why did you wait till the last minute to try to find your laptop now? And he was like, chill, mama, damn. That's exactly how he said it, y'all. With the curse word and everything. And I was like, wait a minute. Because Mariah said, first off, you don't tell me to calm down. And that's all she said. And I was like, Mariah, so you just gonna skip over the fact that your son just cursed at you like that? How old is this little boy? He wouldn't have had none of them curls left in his head. So she ended up at the same time, one of the other ladies, I guess that's vying for like the head PTO position, because y'all know Mariah be on top of it, okay? She got to have all the notoriety, all of the attention on her. You know, she got to get all the accolades and all of that. So one of the other ladies from, I guess, the PTO comes over, and she's like, oh, hey, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. Do you need us to help you do anything? Because that fundraiser is still coming up, and I would hate to see, you struggling like this, and then you still trying to figure out how to do that. And Mariah was like, girl, I gotta get out my face. Actually, you holding up the line now. So the girl ends up going back to her to her car. And so Mariah ends up getting a notification on her phone about the police arresting someone for Father Brown's death, right? But she's still pretty skeptical about it, and something just don't seem right here. Something seems off. So she poses as one of his family members to try to get added to the visitation list for him. But y'all, it's already full. Okay, his family is in full support of him. So they tell her the only other person that be allowed to talk to him would be his lawyer at this point. So she ends up going to her husband, Howie, who works at some firm who oversees like the pension for the law firm, like the pension and retirement fund and all of that stuff. And so she's asking him, where can she find a good lawyer for I think his first name is Sharik. It's I'm not gonna slaughter that man's name. Last name is Mr. DeVoe. Okay, so we're gonna call him Mr. DeVoe. So obviously, she wants to get info from whoever is hired to see if this is lining up with her theories, right? So we shoot back to 2010, and we then see her investigating a story regarding a big wig company staffer who was misappropriating funds. And I'm talking about they was doing a lot. Like they was doing the pay for play. They was moving stuff out of pensions and retirement funds and all of that. And so Mariah and her homegirl that she worked with had ended up actually finding out all of this stuff through the research that they had done, or the investigation that they had done. And so they end up taking it back to her boss, and her boss was like, "Man, what would I do without y'all?" And so then we fast forward a little bit, and I don't know how far we fast forward because we're still, I believe, in 2010. And we see her boss now telling her sometime later that the company is now downsizing due to the lack of newspapers that are selling, because this is when the internet is really starting to come alive. And, well, y'all know we had dial up and all that stuff. Y'all saw a funny short on YouTube the other day. Anyway, y'all, if you weren't around when dial-up and AOL and all of them was around, honey, you was not living. So he says, this is all the news. We can try to put it up on the blogs. And Mariah was like, the blogs? Wait a minute. Okay. That's not what what I'm here to do. Okay. I am an investigative journalist for the newspaper. I don't want to do nothing for no blog on the internet. That don't even sound right. So she ends up going home later on that night and telling her husband what's going on, or Howie. He wasn't her husband at the time. And so he offers to take care of her. He done proposed to her 7 times, y'all. And so now they have this running joke about him proposing for the 8th time. And eventually she's gonna say yeah. So he was like, man, baby, let me take care of you. And she says that she's never aspired to be a housewife. And we know that from previous conversations that she's had with Tal, because her mom is always trying to like groom her into being, Black Barbie at the house. And so, she says she's never aspired to be a housewife, and although she hated the idea of reaching out to her dad so he could put in a good word for her, to try to find her another job, she ultimately does, and he ends up scoring her this interview, right, for her to be a correspondent on Fox News. But apparently, that's not her jam. She don't have the same beliefs that he do. He's real extreme in his beliefs at this point in his rhetoric. And the way that she's talking to him when she says that the interview went bad after they got off the phone with him, she unintentionally offends him, y'all. Okay. She ended up rejecting the job because she just, like I said, that's not who she is. She's a journalist. She doesn't want to be a correspondent. Like, that's cool for her dad to do that. But ultimately, she feels like her dad only accepted that job because he already felt defeated after he wasn't able to join the Supreme Court. And so this was kind of like a consolation prize to him almost, And so with her saying that, he was like, damn. And I'm pretty sure after that conversation that, I don't know if this is before the conversation with Tal or after that conversation with Tal, because y'all remember Tal had also told him something around the idea of, okay, Dad, I don't really want to have to keep coming to you when I run into trouble. Like, his kids are actively growing up. They're running into their own issues that he can't necessarily help them with. But in the same token, some of the jobs and stuff that they're trying to find don't necessarily align with his ideas. And so he's having a hard time trying to adjust. Okay. So Tal is at home and he's talking to Kimmer, and she reminds him that interviews and background checks will soon be happening for, her federal bench nomination. But Tal is clearly distracted by what's going on with everything in his world, and so she informs him that she's going to be late because she's got a meeting with a client again. That's what he probably heard in his head. Because I was like, again, Kimmer? Girl. I feel like you should have like a max limit to the meetings that you're supposed to have weekly, especially with you trying to do this nomination. Like, I get it, you're supposed to smooge with people, but in the same token, we need you at the house. I'm not saying you got to cook and clean and stuff like that, but you got a young impressionable child at the house. He is so cute, y'all. Bentley is so handsome. So you should want to let that be a part of, how you how you present yourself to these people. Yes, I handle business. Yes, I'm professional, but in the same token, I'm also a mom. I'm also a wife. Like, and it shouldn't be like that. Like, you shouldn't have to choose, but I feel like she gonna have to put her foot down. So he goes to work, and as he's getting something out of his trunk, y'all, this car like speeds up, like intentionally speeds up and tries to hit Tal. And so he looking like, what the hell? And so then he get whatever he getting out his trunk, and he starts to walk towards the campus. Now, as he's walking, because this car don't like went around, but now it's in the other lane, but they can clearly see each other through the gaps in the cars, right? So Tyler's looking over there at the car. The car is moving when he moves, just like that. Ludacris and Shauna. So he goes over there to get ready to try to see who's in this car, but then the car hurries up and speeds off, y'all. So he goes back to the security dude, and he was like, hey, if you see this car, keep an eye out and let me know. And so the guy makes mention of of one of the tracks that Tal had put on this burnt CD for him, because Tal had made him a CD. Y'all know Tal is like a music head. And so he ended up putting Ghetto Boys on there. My mind is playing tricks on me, right? And so he did a line from the Ghetto Boys, and Tal was like, now's not the time, bro. Keep an eye out for this car just in case it pop back up, okay? So on his way to class, he ends up running into Mark, and he plays it off by asking him, if he's added a Wednesday class to his lecture schedule. And he was like, hell no, I'll jump out a window before I do that. Better yet, I'll throw one of these kids out the window before I add another class to my lecture schedule. I was like, okay, it's that bad. They stressing you out like that, huh? How many more years you got till you retire? So he then comes back and was like, because he asked him, okay, that some people said that they had saw you go into my classroom. He was like, no, I don't have no reason to go in there. And then he was finna get ready to walk past him on the steps, and he was like, you know what? I did go in there. He said he went back in there because he forgot his laser pen. I mean, this thing, like, it's amazing. You should get one. So, quite an odd reason to be there. But after Tal looks at the footage that the security dude had gave him, he was actually telling the truth, y'all. So this marks Mark off the list of possible people who put this chess piece in the room. So Tal ends up calling Kimmer again to suggest that they go to the Vineyard House, aka the Summer House, to try to spend some time together. And she was like, it's kind of cold. And he was like, yeah, I mean, I know it's cold, but it's still pretty nice. And I figure we could use this time, to spend some time together, reconnect a little bit. And then he also wants to go out there because he's looking for the chess pieces out there. Okay. And so she finally agrees to a vacay, but she tells him she's going to be out later than she originally anticipated. I was like, okay, Kimmer, you just keep on making this worse and worse for yourself. So he pops up at the place that she was having her meeting at with her client. And y'all, it's somebody that he already knows. Now, he yelled out some guy named Jerry's. He yelled out a name named Jerry. Turns out, y'all, Jerry is her boss, okay? But we'll get to that. So he was like, Jerry, that MFer, right? And so as he sees him walking out with Kimmer, he sees him also kiss Kimmer on the cheek, right? And then Kimmer ends up getting in the car with him and they drive off. And so Tal's already like on 100. So then we go back to Mariah. I tell you, boy, Mariah sure does know the power that she yields. Because I was thinking she was going to get secondhand information from this lawyer about the case. But no, y'all. She said, I'm going to hear it from the horse's mouth for myself. Y'all, she done went down there to the prison with the lawyer. And she is actually going to be sitting in on said meeting that they're supposed to be having between him and Mr. DeVoe, right? And so when she comes in, he was like, now this is not what I normally do. This is not how I usually conduct business. And so she was like, you gonna do it like this if you don't want to piss off the wife of the guy that's responsible for your retirement and pension funds now, right? Because that would be a whole lot that you would have to explain to your bosses. So I'd advise you to sit down and be quiet and let me ask whatever questions I need to ask. I was like, Mariah, daggone girl. So Sharik comes in. And again, the lawyer is feeling really uncomfortable about it. And so he was like, again, he's throwing out his disclaimer. This is not how I usually conduct businesses. And as a matter of fact, I hope that none of this is illegal. She basically wanted to do a quid pro quo type of situation. And he was like, oh man, I really am not supposed to be. And so Sharik was like, okay, well, what you want to know since you paying for all my legal fees and the heavy retainer? What you want to know? And so she was like, what was going on with you and Father Brown? Because they said that you was the one that did them in. So I just need to know what happened. What type of relationship did y'all have? And so he ends up telling her that, him and Rev never had any beef like that. As a matter of fact, growing up, Rev would always try to provide a safe space for him, if nothing else, and try to keep him on the right track. But he just couldn't stay out the streets like that. And so Rev would still show him some love when he saw him, from time to time. He would try to make sure that he fed him. And he would even take him to church sometimes, minister to him in the car. He always had a real deep love for Rev, okay? And so out of the blue one day, when he saw Rev was like, hey, you got any perks on you? You got any bennies? You got all those names. Y'all know I don't know all the pills, okay? I just know the perks and the bins. So he started asking them for pills, but explains that they wasn't for him. They were for his girlfriend. And so Mariah was like, you actually believe that? And he was like, yeah, because I've been doing this long enough to spot an addict right off the bat. And I can tell you, Rev wasn't no addict, okay? This had to be for somebody else. And so since he said this was for his girlfriend, who am I to say that he a liar? And so Mariah was like, girlfriend? He ain't supposed to have no girlfriends. Rev didn't have no girlfriend out here. He was like, man, you must not know the same man, okay? Because he was out here thotting and botting around here in these streets, okay? He was for the streets. So she ends up asking him who Rev's girlfriend was. And he was like, man, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. He never told me her name. So now Mariah has to figure out her name, right? So back over to Tal and Kimmer. Y'all, they're on the ferry to the summer house when she's getting off the phone. She's coming back up to him, right? Apparently, business is still businessing. And so she's trying to make sure that all those affairs are in order before she gets to relax at the summer house. But y'all, when she comes back over and they're kind of, like talking and hugged up, Maxine from the skating ring walks past. And so Tal does like a whole head spin, like Linda Blair off off The Exorcist. Okay? And she was like, Kimmer noticed, and she was like, she's pretty. And he was like, oh, yeah, no, no, no. I'm so sorry. She was like, it's okay. And so they laugh about it. But in his head, he probably like, what is she doing here? Is she following him? I just need to know. And so he manages to bring up Kimmer's boss in conversation and that he had saw her out the other night. And so she was like, oh, he's doing fine. He's just trying to find a way to make sure that I stay at the firm. He doesn't want me to leave. And I was like, girl, how much is he trying to keep you? What is he doing? What is he sacrificing to keep you at the firm? Are you going to lose everything trying to do whatever behind the scenes with your boss? So anyway, once they pull up to the house, y'all, they spot a woman taking pictures of the house. And so it turns out, y'all, Kimmer done called this lady. This lady is an appraiser. And so Tal is outraged because his dad ain't even in the ground good, okay? The soil ain't even got sprinkled on. It ain't wet. It ain't none of that, okay? And here you are trying to see how much you can get out of this. It's because she was like, yeah, this is my house too. You know, I thought I was doing you a favor. And he was like, girl, I'm still trying to process the fact that my daddy is now gone. Ain't nobody got time to be trying to appraise no house. Ain't nobody thinking about that. And so he walks up to the lady and was like, have you been in the house yet? And she said, no, I haven't been in the house. And, you know, Kimmer's apologizing to her. Clearly, she's very uncomfortable. And the reason that he asked the lady, has she been in the house, is because when he looked at the door, you could clearly see that somebody used a crowbar or something to pry open the door. And so he goes in, and immediately when he steps in there, we hear glass breaking. So somebody done broke in the house. And so he tells Kimmer to call the police. So as she's calling the police, we can clearly see that the whole bottom half of the house has been ransacked. Whatever they were looking for, I don't know if they found it. But it was awful, okay? So then he starts to go upstairs to make sure that nobody's still in the house. He got a knife and everything in his hand. And so he goes upstairs to check all the rooms. And surprisingly, none of the rooms were touched. None. And so then he goes in this one particular room, and I believe this probably might have been his parents' room or maybe his old room when they would go to the summer house. And he finds this letter made out to him from his dad. And so in it, he's apologizing for leaving Tal in the dark about these arrangements, but says the only one who knows about them is Lisa's boyfriend. But he's got to hurry because he isn't in the best health anymore, and Tal isn't the only one looking for Lisa's boyfriend. So you got to get there fast before everybody else do. So then later on that night, I guess the police had told them that it was some teens just out here having fun. And I was like, yeah, okay, kids, are they going to ransack your house like that? Clearly, this had to be somebody else. Because kids ain't finna come in your house and trash your place like this. I mean, really, unless they live in there. But I mean, even if they are living there, why would you want to trash where you sleep? Wouldn't you just want to raid the kitchen? You know, raid the booze cabinet or something like that to see if you can get something out of there, but I guess. So anyway, Kimmer makes sure the Tal locks the door, and then she ends up falling asleep on the couch. So while she sleep, he ends up going to the attic and finds this old newspaper article about him and his dad winning this father-son tournament. Okay, I don't know if it was a chess tournament. I didn't see all of that, but they took a picture together. And, you know, of course, he's still getting emotional about it. So later on, when he comes back to town, Tal runs into the student that gave him the kicks as a grief gift. And he denies seeing anyone out of the norm in the class before it had started, right? And so he was like, okay, that's weird. Who put this chess piece there? And so later on, Tal goes home, right? And so again, Kimmer literally just came in the house, right? He's with Bentley. And she ain't even in the house before she's saying that she got to head back out. And so he was like, where you going now? And she was like, oh, I got to meet with this guy. Apparently, one of her people that she's real cool with that's trying to make sure that secures this nomination. Her homegirl know one of the guys is very influential and could probably help her lock down this nomination, right? And so, I mean, I get it. It's for um their future. She's working towards trying to make sure that something is going with their future, which is great. But in the same token, like, still, you just got here, girl. And so, as she's going in the bathroom to try to freshen up real quick so she can head right back out, Tal ends up questioning her about the dinner the other night. And so she admits that she says where she was. He didn't say anything about an actual dinner. He was like, where'd y'all end up going the other night? And so she was like, oh, we went out to dinner, and it was what did she say? She said it was the rest of like I guess like the firm. A lot of the staff from the firm had came out, including her boss Jerry and whoever they were trying to win over to get this deal done. They wanted to be real talkative that night, okay? A little chatty Cathy, okay? And so they ended up staying a lot longer than they anticipated. And so, like I said, she said that she's finna get ready to go have drinks with her friend and this guy who could help her land this nomination. And so while she's in the bathroom, y'all, Tal ends up grabbing her phone out of her purse. Major violation. Don't condone it. But in the same token, Kimmer is moving real weird, y'all. And she may be telling the truth about everything, but she's just not addressing how uncomfortable it's making him. And so if you feel that, have a conversation. But she's not having any type of conversation with him to ease his anxiety and ease his worry about if his wife is stepping out on him or not. And so, y'all, he goes into her purse, grabs her phone, and turns the location on, like the share my location, and he leaves it on indefinitely. So I wonder if Kimber's gonna ever figure this out. And if she does, she gonna be pissed. And I was like, poor Billy, he don't ever see his mama no more. So we go to Mariah. Mariah goes to several interviews, but none of them end up panning out. And so she ends up calling her dad. And she calls him because she's ready to give up like him. But instead of him allowing himself to swoop in, and save her and make sure that she's got a job, he tell her to keep that same energy that she was giving him earlier when they were having this conversation and just keep trying. She's gonna get it. You have a lot of ambition. You're very driven. You gonna find something. Okay, you gonna land on your feet, but give it some time. And so we finally see her come home, and I guess she done got tired of feeling defeated and going to these interviews and nothing happening for her. So when she comes home, she finds Boo Thing getting out the shower. And so he's talking to her, telling her that he's finna get ready to go to the gym or something like that. And she just flat out tells him to ask her for the 8th time. And so he was like, what? And she said, I'm ready. Go ahead and ask me for the 8th time. And he was like, are you serious? Like, the way that she said it was just like casual conversation. Like, I'm sitting up here talking to y'all. This is the way that she said it. Like, just go ahead and ask me. Like, it was a problem for her. And so he was like, oh my God, I had something like fully planned out. I was going to get a guy to play the cello. And he had this whole plan in his head. But because Mariah wanted what she wanted when she wanted, he just gave it to her. Instead of just telling her to wait and let me do it the way that I want to do it when I'm the one asking you. So he literally finds the ring, y'all. He was scrambling. He is so sweet. He was scrambling in his drawers to try to find this ring, y'all. And so he ended up proposing to her, and she accepts. And although I'm sure she was overall, happy about it, this had to be like a very bittersweet moment for her, because this means that she, at least for the moment, is sidelining her dream of making it big in her career in order for her to be a kept woman and for him to take care of her for now. Now, I'm sure, he probably is not laying any expectations on her, but usually in these situations, if the man, or however it works, if one person is going to primarily be taking care of the other person, they have expectations of, okay, you're going to be at the house, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing that. That way, when I come home, it should be like this. And most of the time, if it's, a heterosexual relationship, then maybe kids are usually on the table unless it's a conversation that somebody has up front, like, hey, I don't want kids, and we agree on that. So it was really bittersweet. And the look on her face was just like, I love you, but I don't know if I really want to marry you. But I'm going to do it because what other options do I have right now? And maybe she might use that to try to climb her way back up too. I don't know. So Mariah goes to church. We're back in the present now, y'all. I'm sorry. So Mariah goes to church in search of answers, and y'all, the secretary don't have no answers for her. Okay, she want to come in there and start asking all these questions about Father Brown, and she was like, "Girl, I don't know nothing." And so Mariah ends up just pulling out her checkbook. She throws money around, like, in most instances, it does get her the result that she's looking for, but it's not gonna work every time. It's not gonna work every time. And so she ends up pulling out her checkbook, y'all, and she writes a check for $25,000 to the church in exchange for info. But that secretary, y'all, Miss Reed, she remained real tight-lipped about if Father Brown had a girlfriend or not. And so she was like, and even if he did have a girlfriend, that ain't none of my business. But I'll go ahead and give you your receipt. And so as Miss Reed is going to go get the receipt for Mariah, y'all, Mariah ends up sneaking into Father Brown's office, right? And so she's looking around, and I was like, man, Mariah gonna get caught. Because the secretary had came back looking for her. And I don't know when Mariah snuck out, y'all, but Mariah ended up coming out of the office before the secretary had even made it in there. I was like, dang, that was quick. Y'all, she ended up grabbing his notebook, or like his calendar book, however you want to call it, like his little memo book, his notepad. All of those, right? Synonyms. And so, and she ends up calling Tal to let him know what happened, and they make a plan to meet up to discuss their findings. And so she goes home and she's watering her plants, right? And so then she looks back because now something done stuck in her brain. A light bulb done went out. So after she waters her plants, y'all, she then looks back in Father Brown's notebook and sees all of these little tiny memos involving Lisa. Lisa, water the plants, water Lisa's plants, meet Lisa for lunch, do all of these things for Lisa. So they come to the conclusion that their dad must have been talking about Father Brown and Lisa being his girlfriend. But now that he's dead, because these people were looking for him too, how are they going to get any of this information that they're looking for? So finding Lisa is definitely a must at this point. So Tal ends up calling Agent McDermott, or whatever his name is at this point, to meet up later that night. And so McDermott was like, okay, cool. You're going to take the subway. And then once you get off the train, you're going to meet me and I'm going to be in a red car. He gave him a little bit more details than that, but I'm giving y'all the gist of it, okay? So long story short, he's going to be in a red car later on that night. So we jump back to the past with Mariah. And at this particular point, Oliver and Howie had just came from a game, right? And so Oliver is comparing perception and power to pieces on his chessboard, because y'all know he loved chess, right? So they end up discussing the pawn and the queen on the chessboard. And in this moment, as I'm listening to them, presently, I would say that Tal represents the pawn, because to him, the pawn can move in a lot of different places. There, of course, you can display strengths and weaknesses with the pawn, but it's very reliable. Okay, it'll show up when you need to show up. And so then Howie ended up explaining that the queen knows her power on the chessboard, And the queen always wins. It still wins. And so I was like, yeah, that's definitely Mariah. And I mean, as he was making this comparison, he was looking at Mariah. And so Mariah was like, we're gonna go ahead and leave. Because her and the mom could probably see where this conversation was finna get ready to go. Oliver was finna get real deep, and a lot of that stuff might have been going over Howie's head. So, they're headed out the door, and so Mariah hangs back for a second to ask her dad his thoughts on Howie, right? And so he was like, oh, it was great. I had a really good time hanging out with him, and he's a really, really good guy. However, I don't like him for you. And so she was like, are you kidding me? This is a joke, right? And so as she's starting to talk to him, she is starting to curse at him. She's getting very frustrated. And so she was like, are you punishing me? Like, what are you punishing me? What are we doing here? Why are you telling me that you don't like him for me, but you like him? And so he was like, he's going to give you everything that you want, no questions asked. And in turn, as he gives you everything that you want, it's going to kill your ambition for you to get out there and get it for yourself. And so she refutes that belief and then she goes off on him because she feels like I said, he's punishing her for turning down the offer at Fox and for basically hurting his feelings. Y'all, she ended up calling him petty and minimized the hell out of his job. And so the first time she cussed at him, I was like, Mariah, watch your tone. And he said it like right after I did. So she snapped off on him, y'all, like full-fledged. And so after she goes off on her little tirade, he comes right back at her and tells her that a week after she made her little comment about him giving up on life and, going to Fox because that was his last little hoorah or whatever the case may be, he ended up calling them and they informed him, not the other way around, that they had decided to go with somebody else. But because he didn't want to hurt her feelings, he felt like she had already dealt with enough rejection as of late. He didn't tell her that news. Instead, he tried to encourage her to keep looking for other options, pursuing other options. But she took it as something else, right? And so he tells her that he was trying to look out for her, and y'all, she was left speechless. She didn't have anything to say. What could you say? Besides, I'm finna get ready to go. And how his words have rung true. And I think Mariah is now starting to realize that. And so I also feel like because she's starting to see what he saw all of those years ago now, after he has died, she's now trying to fix it for herself. She's trying to fix it internally, right? And I also feel like because she chose the path that she chose to let Howie take care of her, she just sit back and be this black Barbie in the house, I feel like she's kind of disconnected from her family because she turned into the exact thing that she always said that she never wanted to be. She only had her kids a handful of times. Like, I know this is only the 3rd episode, y'all, but every time I turn around, her nanny has those kids. She never has her kids. I think she had them at breakfast that one time, and then they went to the skating ring. And then there might have been one other time, I think when she was dropping Malcolm off in the drop-off line. But aside from that, Mariah never has her kids. And so, there's definitely disconnect there. And it has to be for her son to be cussing at her. Okay, clearly he's feeling something too, right? And so she ends up going to Howie and she was like, I gotta go. I gotta get away for a little bit. And she ends up telling him that there's a lot of things that need to be wrapped up at her dad's house. It was way more than she thought it was going to be. And so this may take some time, okay? She might be gone for a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. I was like, whoa, you're just going to sneak that in there like that's okay? Like he not supposed to ask questions? And although he looked like he wanted to ask questions, y'all, he didn't. He didn't ask her anything. He just said, okay. And that's the type of man that her dad never wanted her to be with, because he knew that he would just always say okay and put up with whatever she was dishing out. I don't know, y'all. So anyway, Tal finally goes to meet up with Agent McDermott. And as he's getting off the train, just as he instructed him to, he looks over and he spots the red sedan. And so he was like, okay, yep, there he is. Like he said he was going to be, y'all. So as he's walking over, the car just explodes. It blows up. Kablooey. Okay? Smithereens. And so Tal is shocked. He don't know what just happened. He can't believe what just happened, what he just saw. And there's a lady that's screaming like, oh my God, somebody was in there. Somebody was in the car. And that's the way the episode ends, y'all, as the Ghetto Boys starts to play. Like I said, it was a really good episode. I enjoyed this episode. I'm curious to see where this is going now. Who the hell is Lisa? Okay? Who is it? Is she going to be able to provide some of the answers to the questions that they have? Is this all going to connect back? Are we going to be able to figure out who put that piece on the podium? Stay tuned, y'all, okay? But that's all I have for now. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about it, okay? You can reach me at Me and You TV Reviews on Facebook and on Instagram. You can also reach me at My TV Reviews Podcast without the S on the end at gmail.com. And y'all, I'm a big girl now, okay? Can I pat myself on the back real quick, y'all? I'm gonna pat myself on the back real quick. Not only did I figure out how to get the podcast back up to Apple listeners, okay, yay. But now I'm learning how to post videos on YouTube, y'all. Okay, so and I can say this for myself because I know I go from stream to stream. So sometimes I be feeling like I'm gonna watch all the YouTube videos one day, and then sometimes I be on like Spotify or whatever the case may be all day listening to podcasts. So if you are on YouTube and you having a YouTube day, find me on YouTube. It's literally me and you TV reviews, like it is on the podcast, y'all. Okay, I love you guys. I hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. All right, y'all stay safe out there. And until we meet over the airwaves again, I am Mo, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.